Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something pretty wild. What would it be like if you suddenly woke up as a German soldier in World War I? I mean, this shit was intense, like really intense. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to 1914 and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So congratulations, you just woke up in August 1914 in a barracks somewhere in Germany. Your eyes open to dim morning light filtering through small windows. The straw-filled mattress beneath you crinkles as you shift. Around you, dozens of other men are stirring, some already pulling on their field grey uniforms. Your nostrils fill with the distinct smell of wool uniforms, leather boots, and the sweat of too many men packed into too small a space. Somewhere, coffee is brewing. Not real coffee, mind you. The kind of weak, grainy substitute that passes for it in military quarters. You sit up, your back stiff from the thin mattress. A bell clangs outside and suddenly everyone's moving faster. You're swept up in it like you already know what to do. Schnell! Schnell! Someone shouts. Quick, quick! You find yourself dressed in a scratchy wool uniform. Field grey, they call it, but it's more like a greenish grey that fades to a duller shade after washing. The boots are stiff leather, already worn in the right places for your feet. That's weird, right? Like they've been yours for months. The jacket buttons up tight around your neck with silver buttons that you're careful not to polish too brightly. Don't want to make yourself a target. You place a cap on your head. Not the famous spiked helmet yet, that's for later. Just a simple field cap for now. And you know, somehow, that war has just been declared. The excitement is palpable. Everyone's talking about being home by Christmas. You'll march through Belgium, knock out France real quick, then deal with Russia. Simple plan. You've trained for this. Every German man has, basically. You're part of the Kaiser's army now? Not by choice, exactly. In Germany, military service has been compulsory for men since forever. 2 or 3 years of active service starting at age 20. But here's the thing, almost nobody here is complaining. It's 1914 and the whole country is swept up in war fever. We'll be in Paris in a month, says the guy beside you, who you somehow know is named Heinrich. He's grinning as he straps on his gear. The French will run at the first sight of us. You nod, but something in your gut feels wrong. Maybe it's the fact that you know how this all turns out, or maybe it's just breakfast, a chunk of dark bread and that coffee substitute that tastes like dirt. Outside, thousands of men are gathering. The equipment feels heavy but familiar. You've got this leather belt around your waist with pouches containing 120 rounds for your Mauser rifle. A bread bag hangs at your side, holding your personal items and rations. Your canteen is attached to it. At your hip is a bayonet, thicker and more brutal looking than the British equivalent. The rifle itself, the Gewehr 98, is solid in your hands. Long and accurate, but awkward in tight spaces. 5 rounds in the chamber. You've drilled with it hundreds of times, it seems. Your body remembers even if your mind is confused. The morning is bright and warm. Summer in Germany. People line the streets as your regiment marches toward the train station. Girls throw flowers. Old men salute. Everyone cheers. You march and march, swept along in this river of field grey uniforms, thousands of men, all headed to war with smiles on their faces. If only they knew. The train takes you west, toward Belgium. Guys are singing patriotic songs, playing cards, writing letters home. It's like a holiday mood. And why not? The officers keep saying you'll be home by Christmas. The Kaiser says it's necessary, Heinrich tells you, his face serious now. France and Russia were going to attack us anyway. Britain too, probably. We're just beating them to it. You nod again. What else can you do? Days pass in a blur of marching. More train rides, more marching. The weight of your pack digs into your shoulders. Your feet develop blisters, then calluses. The summer heat makes your uniform stick to your skin with sweat. The wool smells worse each day. And then, suddenly, you're at the Belgian border. The officers are shouting orders. There's tension now. This is it. The war is about to begin for real. Nobody looks so cheerful anymore. Reality is setting in. The Belgians won't just let you pass through. They're going to fight. And the British have joined the war too, which wasn't supposed to happen so fast. Your battalion moves through small Belgian towns. Some are already burning. Civilians watch with fear and hatred in their eyes. You've heard rumours that Belgian civilians are attacking German soldiers, so everyone's on edge. And then comes your first battle. It happens so fast. One moment you're marching down a country road, the next you're diving for cover as bullets whiz overhead. The noise is what gets you first. It's deafening. Rifles crack, machine guns chatter, men scream, artillery shells shriek through the air before exploding in geysers of dirt and metal. You find yourself firing your rifle at shapes in the distance. Are they Belgian? French? You can barely tell. Your training takes over. Load, aim, fire. Load, aim, fire. The rifle butt slams into your shoulder with each shot. Heinrich goes down beside you, clutching his leg. Blood seeps between his fingers. You help drag him behind a wall, then return to firing. Hours blur together. By nightfall, you're exhausted, ears ringing, hands shaking, but you're alive, and your side has won this small engagement. The Belgians have retreated. That night, you sleep in a farmhouse that's been abandoned. You're too tired to even remove your boots. Your dreams are filled with the sounds of battle. You jerk awake at every noise. The push continues. Each day brings more fighting, more marching, more death. But you're moving forward, always forward, into France now. The Great Schlieffen Plan is working. Swing wide through Belgium, then down into France, encircling Paris from the north. Except it isn't quite working as planned. The Belgians slowed you down. The British are fighting hard alongside the French, and the Russians have mobilised faster than expected in the east. By early September, you're exhausted. Your unit has been marching and fighting for a month straight. Your uniform is filthy, your body thin from inconsistent meals, but you've made it close to Paris. Victory seems within reach. Then the order comes: retreat. The French and British have counterattacked at the Marne River. The German advance has been stopped. You fall back with the rest of your unit, confused and demoralised. This wasn't supposed to happen. Paris was almost within reach. Now you're digging in north of the Aisne River, creating defensive positions. And that's how it begins. The trenches. At first, they're just shallow scrapes in the dirt. Places to take cover from enemy fire. But as days turn to weeks, they grow deeper, more complex. By October, you're living in a trench. The autumn rains have started, turning the floors to mud. You slosh through water that sometimes reaches your knees. Your feet are constantly wet, the skin starting to rot. Trench foot, they call it. But here's the thing about German trenches. They're better built than the Allied ones. The Germans, you, are planning to stay on the defensive now. Hold what you've gained in Belgium and northern France while dealing with Russia. So, your officers have you digging deeper, reinforcing the walls with timber and sandbags. In some places, they even use concrete. The trenches are dug in a zigzag pattern to limit the damage from shell explosions. You help build dugouts into the sides of the trenches, underground rooms where you can shelter from artillery. Unlike the British dugouts, which are usually just a few feet deep, the German ones go down 12 feet or more, sometimes with multiple levels connected by wooden stairs. It's hard work, but it gives you something to do, and when it's finished, you have relatively safe places to sleep, eat, even relax a bit. Some dugouts eventually get electric lights powered by generators, luxury compared to what the British and French have. The routine of trench life quickly becomes normal. Stand watch at dawn and dusk when attacks are most likely. Work on strengthening the trenches during the day. Send out patrols at night to scout no man's land or raid enemy trenches. Food is decent enough at first. Dark bread, sausage, sometimes fresh meat, potatoes and vegetables, coffee, or at least that substitute, beer occasionally if you're lucky. Each day you get 2 cigars or cigarettes, small comforts. The boredom is almost worse than the fear. Hours and hours of nothing happening. You write letters home, play cards with the other men, clean your rifle for the 100th time. And then there's the rats, massive things, fat from feeding on corpses in no man's land. They scurry through the trenches at night, bold enough to run across your body while you're trying to sleep. Lice too, infesting your uniform, biting incessantly. You can feel them crawling on your skin. The itch never stops. The smell is something else entirely. Mud and human waste, unwashed bodies, rotting food, the sweet, sickening odour of corpses decomposing just outside the trench. You stop noticing it after a while, your nose adjusting to the constant assault. Winter comes, bringing freezing temperatures. The mud turns to ice, then back to mud, then ice again. Your feet are never warm. You wrap them in whatever you can find, newspaper, extra socks, bits of blanket. Your dugout becomes a haven. Down there, below ground level, it stays a bit warmer. You huddle with the other men for warmth, personal space long forgotten. Christmas 1914 arrives. You're still in France, not home like everyone promised. But something strange happens. The firing stops. Across no man's land, you can hear the British singing carols. Someone on your side starts singing too. Before the officers can stop it, men from both sides are climbing out of their trenches, meeting in no man's land, exchanging small gifts, cigarettes, chocolate, badges. There's even a football game. For a few hours, there's no war, just men who want to be home, finding a moment of peace. But it doesn't last. The officers put an end to it. The war resumes, and now there's a new horror to face. In April 1915, near Ypres, your commanders try something new. Gas, chlorine gas, released from cylinders, forming a greenish-yellow cloud that drifts toward the enemy trenches. You watch from a distance, gas mask ready. The Allied soldiers opposite have no protection. They cough, choke, die. It opens a gap in their line, but the German forces aren't ready to exploit it fully. And soon enough, the Allies have gas too. Now you have to worry about poison drifting into your trench. The gas mask is uncomfortable, restricting your vision and breathing, but it's better than having your lungs dissolved. The war grinds on. 1915 passes, then 1916. Major battles flare up. Verdun, the Somme, but the lines barely move. Millions die for gains measured in yards. Your world shrinks to the few hundred yards of trench that your unit occupies. You know every corner of it, which boards are loose, where the best shelter is during artillery bombardments, which parts flood worst after rain. Your body settles into this new normal. You sleep lightly, one ear always alert for danger. You can tell the difference between dozens of shell types just by their sound as they fly overhead. You know exactly how long it takes to put on your gas mask. Friends die. New men arrive to replace them. They look so young, so clean. They haven't learned yet how to survive. Many don't last long. You survive because you're careful. You keep your head down. You don't volunteer for dangerous missions. You maintain your equipment. You watch for signs of trench foot and treat it early. But mostly you survive because of luck. The shell that lands 10 feet away instead of directly in your dugout, the sniper who misses by inches, the patrol that chooses the trench section next to yours to raid. And all the while, the war keeps changing. New weapons appear, flamethrowers, better machine guns, more effective artillery, tanks lumbering across no man's land like iron monsters. You shift a little, getting more comfortable as you think about how, in the middle of all this horror and monotony, the uniform on your back is changing too. The iconic spiked helmet, the Pickelhaube, is being replaced by the new Stahlhelm, a steel helmet that offers better protection. Your blue uniform has given way entirely to field grey. Equipment evolves, adapting to the realities of this new kind of warfare. By 1917, the war has transformed everything. You've been in the trenches so long now that civilian life feels like a distant dream. The man you were before the war, he's gone, replaced by this hollow-eyed veteran who flinches at loud noises and can sleep through artillery barrages. Your trench has become more sophisticated over time. What started as a simple ditch is now an engineering marvel, 12 feet deep in places, reinforced with timber and concrete. Dugouts extend far underground, some big enough to house dozens of men. The officers' dugouts even have proper furniture salvaged from abandoned houses. This morning, you wake in your underground shelter. Unlike the British and French troops, who often sleep in shallow holes or right in the trench itself, your dugout is relatively comfortable, deep enough that artillery can't reach it unless there's a direct hit. The wooden planks beneath you aren't exactly a featherbed, but they're dry. That's something. The space is crowded with 8 other men, all still sleeping in the dim light of a single electric bulb powered by a generator somewhere behind the lines. Their breathing creates a chorus of snores and wheezes. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, damp wool and tobacco. You check your watch. 5:30, almost time for stand 2, when everyone mans the fire step at dawn, the most likely time for an enemy attack. Your body knows the routine so well you barely need to think about it. You reach for your Stahlhelm, the steel helmet that replaced the old leather Pickelhaube. This one actually provides some protection from shrapnel. Running your fingers over its surface, you can feel dents and scratches from near misses, each one a time you almost died. Outside, the pre-dawn air is chilly. Spring in northern France. A light mist hangs over no man's land, obscuring the British trenches opposite. They're about 80 yards away, though it might as well be 80 miles for all the chances of reaching them alive in daylight. "Anything?" you ask the night sentry, a young kid who couldn't be more than 18. He shakes his head. Quiet night. Some rifle fire around midnight. Nothing close. You nod and take your position on the fire step, a narrow ledge that allows you to peer over the parapet with your rifle ready. All along the trench, other men are doing the same, spaced out at regular intervals, eyes scanning the mist for any movement. This is the morning hate ritual. As visibility improves, both sides usually fire a few rounds into the mist, just to let the other side know you're awake and alert. No one expects to hit anything. It's just part of the daily rhythm. Your stomach growls. Rations have been getting worse. The British naval blockade has been strangling Germany for years now. Food shortages back home mean less for the front. The fat sausages and fresh bread of 1914 are long gone. Now it's thin soup, hard bread, and sometimes a bit of preserved meat that might be horse or might be something else. You try not to think about it too much. The tin cup of ersatz coffee in your hand is barely warm. It tastes nothing like actual coffee. It's made from roasted barley and chicory, but it's hot and slightly bitter. Good enough. Stand down, comes the order as full daylight arrives with no sign of attack. The morning hate passes with just a few desultory shots fired into the mist. Everyone's saving ammunition these days. Now comes the daily routine. Some men will sleep, taking advantage of the relative quiet of daylight hours. Others will perform the endless maintenance tasks, repairing damaged sections of trench, pumping out water, checking and cleaning weapons. You've been assigned to a working party today. That means leaving the relative safety of the trench to string barbed wire in no man's land tonight. A dangerous job, but not until after dark. For now, you have time to write a letter home. Settling on an ammunition box in a quiet corner of the trench, you pull out a pencil stub and paper. What to tell your family? Not the truth. The censors would cut it out anyway. So you write about the weather, ask about neighbours, mention a few friends who are still alive. You avoid mentioning the ones who aren't. Post going out today? Asks Heinrich, who somehow survived that leg wound 3 years ago. He walks with a limp now, but refused to accept a discharge. Said he'd rather be with his comrades than trying to explain the war to civilians who don't understand. That's what I heard, you say, folding the letter carefully, though who knows when it'll actually reach home. Heinrich nods, his face gaunt beneath a week's growth of beard. My wife's last letter took 2 months to get here. Said they're eating turnips and bread made with sawdust now. You've heard similar stories from others. The home front is suffering almost as much as the soldiers. Almost. The day drags on. You clean your rifle, check your gas mask, eat a meagre midday meal of soup and hard bread. The soup has a few chunks of mystery meat and some vegetables floating in it. Better than nothing. In the afternoon, you try to nap, knowing you'll be up all night with the wire-laying detail. Sleep comes fitfully. Even in the relative safety of the dugout, your body stays partially alert, ready to respond to the alarm that signals a gas attack or the distinctive sound of an incoming shell. As dusk approaches, it's stand to again. Everyone back on the fire step, watching for movement as the light fades. This is another dangerous time when attacks might come. After dark, you gather with the wire-laying detail. 8 men, led by a corporal who's been doing this since 1915 and somehow hasn't been killed or wounded yet. That's the kind of luck you want to stay close to. We go out through the sap trench, the corporal explains, pointing to a narrow trench that extends out toward no man's land. Work in pairs. One holds the wire, one hammers in the stakes. Keep it quiet. If we're spotted, drop everything and get back to our lines fast. Questions? Nobody has questions. You've all done this before. You know the risks. You're paired with a newer guy, Schmidt. He's been at the front for 3 months, which makes him practically a veteran at this point. The turnover is high. You want to hold or hammer? You ask him. I'll hammer, he says. Steadier hands. You nod. That means you'll be handling the barbed wire itself, which inevitably leads to cuts and scratches no matter how careful you are with the gloves. But Schmidt is right. The hammering needs to be done as quietly as possible, with steady, controlled movements. It's the harder job. The group moves out through the sap trench, then crawls the last 20 yards to the position where the new wire will go. The night is cloudy, which is good. It makes it harder for the British to spot you, but there's enough moonlight filtering through to see what you're doing. For the next 2 hours, you work in near silence, unrolling wire and holding it in place while Schmidt hammers in the metal stakes. The only sounds are the dull thud of hammer on stake, muffled by a cloth wrap, and the occasional distant crack of a rifle shot somewhere along the line. Your hands sting from a dozen small cuts where the barbed wire has penetrated your gloves. Your back aches from hunching over. Every few minutes you freeze in place when a flare goes up, casting harsh light and long shadows across no man's land. If you don't move, the British sentries might not spot you. Finally, the new wire is in place. The corporal signals for everyone to return to the trench. You move carefully backwards, still hunched over, trying to avoid the older strands of wire that litter no man's land like a deadly metal spiderweb. You're almost to the sap trench when a flare goes up directly overhead. Its harsh white light freezes everyone in place, but someone, you never find out who, panics and makes a dash for the trench. Immediately, machine gun fire erupts from the British line. Bullets zip and crack through the air around you. You press yourself flat against the ground, face buried in the mud, praying none of those bullets finds you. The man who ran makes it about 10 yards before going down. You can hear his muffled screams for help, but no one moves. Can't risk more lives. After what feels like hours but is probably just minutes, the British fire slackens. They can't maintain it all night, and they can't be sure of hitting anything in the dark. The flare burns out. Back to the trench, the corporal whispers. Now, crawl. You don't need to be told twice. On your belly, you crawl the remaining distance to the sap trench, then scurry along it back to the main line. Your uniform is caked with mud, your hands bleeding from the wire cuts, but you're alive. The wounded man is still out there. His cries have grown weaker. A patrol might go out for him later if the officers deem it worth the risk. Often they don't. Back in the relative safety of the main trench, you slump against the wall, exhausted. Your heart is still racing from the close call. Schmidt sits beside you, his face pale in the darkness. "Smoke?" he offers, holding out a crumpled cigarette. You take it gratefully. Tobacco is another thing that's been rationed severely, but most men save their allotment for moments like this, when the nerves need steadying. The match flares briefly, illuminating Schmidt's young face. In that instant, you see the fear he's trying to hide. The same fear you've been carrying for 3 years now. The fear you've just gotten better at concealing. You inhale deeply, letting the harsh smoke fill your lungs. It's calming, familiar, a small pleasure in a world that offers few. Think they'll send a patrol for Müller? Schmidt asks quietly, naming the man who was hit. You shrug. Depends if they think he's still alive, and how busy the Tommies are tonight. Schmidt nods, understanding the harsh calculus of the front. No use risking more lives for a man who's probably already dead, or who will die before you can get him back to the aid station. The rest of the night passes in the usual routine. You clean yourself up as best you can, bandage the worst of the cuts on your hands, eat a cold ration of bread and some preserved meat from your bread bag. Then you take your turn on sentry duty, staring out into the darkness, listening for any sound that might indicate a British patrol or raid. The next day brings news. Another big offensive is coming. The rumours have been circulating for weeks, but now it's official. The spring offensive of 1918, Germany's last great push to win the war before American troops arrive in large numbers. The plan sounds ambitious. Break through the British lines, drive to the Channel ports, cut off their supply lines, end the war before the Americans can make a difference. But you've heard big plans before. The Schlieffen Plan in 1914, the attack on Verdun in 1916 that was supposed to bleed France white. None of them delivered the promised victory. Still, there's a different feeling this time. Units from the Eastern Front are arriving daily, freed up by Russia's exit from the war. New tactics have been developed. Stormtroopers, special assault troops, have been training for months. For the first time in years, there's a sense of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, this war can still be won. The preparations are intense. Training in the new infiltration tactics, stockpiling ammunition and supplies, bringing up artillery, all done as secretly as possible to maintain the element of surprise. You find yourself assigned to a stormtrooper unit based on your experience and relatively good physical condition, a rarity after years of poor rations. The training is different from anything you've done before. Instead of massed attacks across no man's land, you'll be moving in small groups, bypassing strong points, pushing deep into enemy territory. The weapons are different too. More machine guns, many of them lighter models that can be carried by 1 or 2 men. Flamethrowers, the new MP-18 submachine guns, automatic weapons perfect for trench clearing, and plenty of grenades, both the stick type and the egg-shaped models. The training is exhausting, but it's also the most interesting thing you've done in years. It feels good to be moving, to be active, instead of just sitting in a trench waiting for shells to fall. And there's better food, at least temporarily. The army is making sure the assault troops are well fed. Meat appears in the stew again. There's even real coffee occasionally. As the offensive draws closer, tension builds. Everyone knows this is Germany's last best chance. The British and French are exhausted too, their armies depleted by years of grinding warfare. But the Americans are coming. Fresh troops, vast industrial capacity, seemingly limitless resources. It has to be now or never. The night before the attack, you try to sleep but can't. No one can. The dugout is filled with restless men checking equipment, writing last letters home, quietly talking in small groups. You think about all you've survived to reach this point. The early battles in Belgium, the retreat from the Marne, years of trench warfare, gas attacks, artillery bombardments that turned the landscape into a cratered moonscape, raids and counter-raids across no man's land. So many close calls. The bullet that passed through your sleeve without touching skin, the shell that buried you alive until your comrades dug you out, the gas attack where your mask leaked slightly, leaving you coughing blood for days but still alive when others died. And now it comes down to this. One massive push to break the stalemate and end the war. Will you survive this too? The odds aren't good. The initial assault troops always suffer the heaviest casualties, but what choice do you have? Desert? You'd likely be caught and shot. And where would you go anyway? The enemy lines are just as dangerous, and home is hundreds of miles away across a war zone. No, you'll do your duty, like you always have. Follow orders. Try to stay alive. That's all anyone can do in this war. As dawn approaches, you gear up. The Stahlhelm sits heavy on your head. Your ammunition pouches are full, extra grenades hanging from your belt. The MP-18 is a comforting weight in your hands, far more effective for close combat than the old Mauser rifle. Your body feels tense, but ready. 4 years of war have turned you into something you never expected to be. A professional soldier, skilled in the art of killing and surviving. Around you, thousands of other men are preparing the same way. The trenches are packed with troops, far more than usual. The attack will come on a wide front, a massive effort to rupture the Allied lines. The artillery begins before dawn, thousands of guns firing in a carefully orchestrated bombardment. Not the days-long shelling that telegraphs an attack, but a short, intense barrage designed to stun and suppress rather than destroy. Gas shells mix with high explosives, forcing the British to don their masks, making it harder for them to fight when the assault comes. You check your watch, counting down the minutes. The bombardment will last exactly 2 hours. Then you go over the top. Your mouth is dry. Your heart pounds in your chest. Around you, men make final adjustments to their equipment, some praying quietly, others silent with their own thoughts. The roar of the guns is deafening, even in the dugout. Above, the ground shakes with each impact. Dust filters down from the ceiling. Then the whistle blows. It's time. You climb the steps to the trench, then up to the fire step. The sky is just beginning to lighten with dawn. Smoke and dust from the bombardment hang in the air, providing some cover. The officer gives the signal, and you're up and over the parapet, moving forward in a crouch, not the headlong rush of earlier attacks. The stormtrooper tactics call for infiltration, finding weak points, bypassing strong resistance. The ground of no man's land is a nightmare landscape of shell holes, tangles of barbed wire and debris, but the engineers have cut paths through the wire, marked with white tape. You follow these paths, moving as quickly as possible while staying low. Surprisingly, there's little fire from the British lines. The bombardment has done its job, forcing them to keep their heads down, disrupting their communications. Your squad reaches the first British trench and drops into it. A few defenders are still there, dazed from the shelling. Brief, violent close-quarter fighting erupts. The MP-18 proves its worth, sweeping the trench with automatic fire. Grenades are tossed into dugouts. Within minutes, this section of trench is secured. But you don't stay to consolidate. That's for the regular infantry following behind. The stormtroopers push on, heading for the second line of trenches, and incredibly, it's working. The British defences are crumbling. The combination of the new tactics, the short, sharp bombardment, and the sheer weight of German numbers is overwhelming them. By mid-morning, you've advanced further in a few hours than either side has managed in years of previous fighting. The breakthrough you've all been waiting for seems to be happening. The exhilaration of movement, of advance, after years of static trench warfare is intoxicating. Despite the danger, despite the casualties, there's a wild energy in pushing forward, in seeing the enemy retreat. By nightfall, your unit has penetrated miles behind what was the British front line that morning. You're exhausted, hungry, thirsty, but triumphant. For the first time in years, it feels like the war might actually end, and Germany might actually win. As you settle into a captured British dugout for a few hours of rest, you allow yourself to imagine going home. Not just on leave, but for good. The war over, peace, normal life. It seems almost within reach now. You stretch out on a British army cot, more comfortable than anything you've slept on in months. Your muscles gradually relax, the tension of the day's fighting slowly ebbing away. Despite the distant rumble of artillery and the unfamiliar surroundings, your body is surrendering to exhaustion. You shift slightly, finding that perfect spot as your breathing naturally slows, and just for a moment you allow yourself to hope that this offensive might really be the one that ends. The offensive continues for days, then weeks. The elation of that first breakthrough fades as the advance begins to slow. The British and French are falling back, yes, but in good order. They're not breaking, and now the supply lines are becoming a problem. Your stormtrooper unit has advanced so far, so fast, that the regular infantry and the supply wagons can't keep up. You're running low on ammunition, food, even water. The countryside you're moving through has been ravaged by years of war. There's little to forage. "We've outrun our artillery," Heinrich says one evening as your squad settles into an abandoned farmhouse for the night. His face is gaunt, streaked with dirt and gunpowder. "Can't advance without support." He's right. The momentum is slowing. The British are bringing up reserves, strengthening their lines. The easy gains of the first days are becoming costly yards won with blood. And there's something else, something new on the battlefield. "Tanks," says Schmidt, who survived the initial assault with you. "More of them each day, and they're getting better at using them." The early British tanks were mechanical nightmares, breaking down constantly, getting stuck in mud, moving at a snail's pace. But the newer models are more reliable, and there are more of them. Working in groups, supported by infantry, they're becoming a serious threat. Your unit has anti-tank rifles, scaled-up Mausers firing massive rounds that can penetrate armour at close range. But they're heavy, cumbersome, and there aren't enough of them. The offensive grinds on through April and into May. The advance slows, then stops altogether in places. The hoped-for breakthrough to the Channel ports doesn't materialize, and now there's a new rumor spreading through the ranks. Americans, not just a few token units, but tens of thousands of fresh troops landing in France every week, hundreds of thousands by summer, millions by year's end. The mood changes. The brief flare of hope that the spring offensive brought is fading. In its place, a grim determination to hold what ground has been gained, and underneath that, a growing sense that the war has turned against Germany for good. Food becomes an even bigger problem. The blockade has been strangling Germany for years, and now it's really biting. Rations at the front are cut again and again. The bread is mostly sawdust now. Meat appears maybe once a week, and it's usually horse. Sometimes you go entire days on thin soup and whatever you can scrounge. Your body adapts. You learn to ignore the constant gnawing hunger. Your belt needs new holes punched as your waist shrinks. Your uniform hangs loose on your frame, but you're still luckier than the civilians back home, who are literally starving in some cities. Summer brings a new enemy: Spanish influenza. It sweeps through the trenches like wildfire. Men who survived years of shells and bullets are dying in days from this invisible killer. The medical stations are overwhelmed. You catch it too. For a week you burn with fever, coughing until your ribs ache and blood specks your handkerchief. But somehow your weakened body fights it off. You survive, though thousands don't. By July, it's clear the tide has turned. The British and French, bolstered by the arriving Americans, launch counter-offensives. For the first time in years, the German army is in full retreat across large sections of the front. Your unit is pulled back from the salient created by the spring offensive. The ground gained at such cost is abandoned. It's a bitter pill to swallow. The retreat is orderly at first, fighting rearguard actions, withdrawing to prepared positions, making the enemy pay for every mile. But as summer turns to fall, the retreat accelerates. Equipment is abandoned. Units become disorganized. Morale plummets. "We've lost the war," Heinrich says bluntly one night in late September. You're huddled in a ruined church taking shelter from the rain. What's left of your company, maybe 40 men out of 200, is scattered among the debris. No one contradicts him. It's what everyone's thinking, but few dare say aloud. Germany has lost. It's just a question of how much longer the fighting will drag on. How many more will die for a cause that's already doomed? October brings political change at home. Word filters through to the front of a new government, of peace feelers being extended to the Allies. The Kaiser's absolute power is being curtailed. Revolution is in the air. And still the retreat continues. Back across northern France, back toward Belgium, toward Germany itself. The once mighty German army is a shell of its former self. Equipment is failing. Replacements are teenagers or old men barely trained. Food and ammunition are in critically short supply. You've been promoted to sergeant, not through any great heroism, but simply because you've survived when so many others haven't. Your experience is now a rare commodity. 4 years at the front makes you almost a mythical figure to the new recruits. The fighting takes on a desperate quality. Units are ordered to hold positions at all costs, then abandoned when the line breaks elsewhere. Communications break down. Sometimes you're not even sure who's in command anymore. One cold, rainy morning in early November, your company commander, a lieutenant who's been at the front all of 3 weeks, gathers what's left of the unit. "I've received orders," he says, his young face solemn. "We're to fall back to the next defensive line, 10 kilometres east." Nobody asks why. It's just another retreat in a season of retreats. You gather your meagre belongings, the Stahlhelm, now dented and scarred, the MP18, which you've managed to keep through the retreat, a few personal items in your bread bag, a half-empty canteen. The march east is silent, men too exhausted and demoralized for conversation. The roads are choked with retreating troops, abandoned equipment, civilian refugees. It's a scene of defeat. That night, huddled around a small fire in yet another ruined building, the lieutenant makes another announcement. There are rumours of an armistice, he says carefully. Nothing official yet, but the fighting may end soon. The news is met with stunned silence. After 4 years of slaughter, the idea that it might simply stop is almost impossible to comprehend. No one cheers, no one celebrates. You've all seen too much, lost too much. What happens then? Someone finally asks. To us, I mean. The lieutenant shrugs. We go home, I suppose. Home. The word sounds foreign, unreal. What is home now? What's left of it? And who are you now, after all you've seen and done? These questions hang in the air, unanswered. The next day brings more retreat, more confusion. Rumours fly. The Kaiser has abdicated. There's revolution in Berlin. The Navy has mutinied at Kiel. No one knows what's true anymore. And then, on November 11th, it happens. The guns fall silent. Officers read out the terms of the armistice. The war is over. The reaction among the men is complex. Relief, yes, but also numbness, disbelief, and questions. So many questions about what comes next. Over the following days, the reality sinks in. Germany has not just lost the war, it has collapsed. The Kaiser has fled to Holland. A republic has been declared in Berlin. The once mighty German Empire is no more. The army begins the long march home, not as conquering heroes, but as a defeated force. The American President Wilson has laid out his 14 points for peace. There's talk of a treaty to be negotiated at Versailles, but that's for politicians to worry about. For now, you just want to go home. The journey is slow, chaotic. The railways are barely functioning. Food is still scarce. Discipline frays further with each passing day. Some units simply dissolve, men striking out on their own. Your company stays mostly intact, held together more by shared experience than by military authority now. The lieutenant, himself barely more than a boy, does his best to maintain order, to get you all home. Home is a small town in Bavaria for you. You haven't seen it in 2 years, not since your last leave. Letters have been sporadic in recent months, so you're not even sure what you'll find there. Your parents, if they're still alive, the girl you were engaged to before the war. Has she waited? 4 years is a long time. As the ragtag column that was once a proud German regiment approaches the border, you find yourself thinking back over the war years, the initial excitement and patriotism, the shock of real combat, the grinding horror of the trenches, the moments of camaraderie that made it bearable, the countless close calls that somehow left you alive when so many others died. You've changed. How could you not? The innocent young man who marched off to war in 1914 is gone forever. In his place is, what? A harder man, a damaged man, but a survivor. The German border comes into view, home soil at last. Men who haven't shown emotion in years now weep openly. Some fall to their knees and kiss the ground. You feel, you're not sure what you feel. Relief. Certainly, but also apprehension. The war may be over, but its effects will linger in your mind, in your dreams, in the missing limbs and scarred bodies of millions of veterans, in the holes left by the millions who will never return. What kind of Germany are you returning to? What kind of life can be built from the ruins of the old order? These questions have no easy answers, but one thing is certain. You've survived. Against all odds, through 4 years of the most destructive war humanity has ever known, you've made it home. That night, you're first back on German soil, you find a barn to sleep in. The hay is softer than anything you've slept on in months. Outside, it's beginning to snow lightly, the first winter of peace. As you lie there, staring up at the rafters, your body finally begins to relax truly and deeply for the first time in years. The constant vigilance, the hair-trigger alertness that kept you alive at the front begins to ebb away. Your breathing slows, your muscles unclench. You're safe. You've survived. The questions about the future, about Germany's fate, about your own place in this new world, can wait for tomorrow. Tonight, you're simply grateful to be alive, to be home. In the quiet darkness of the barn, with the soft sounds of breathing from the other men around you, you find a moment of peace. Not happiness exactly, that might come later, with time, but peace, an ending to the long nightmare. Your eyelids grow heavy, but you resist sleep for a moment longer, savouring this feeling. Around you, some men are already snoring. Others talk quietly, making plans for when they reach their hometowns. Your limbs feel pleasantly heavy as your body sinks deeper into the hay. You shift slightly, getting more comfortable as your thoughts drift to the small Bavarian town where you grew up, wondering what remains of it, what remains of you. Your breathing settles into a steady rhythm as memories of home mix with the harsh realities of what you've just lived through. The journey home takes longer than expected. Germany is in chaos. The revolution that started with sailors in Kiel has spread. Workers' councils have taken control in some cities. There are food riots, political assassinations, armed clashes between communists and nationalists. Your unit fragments further with each passing day. Men peel off when the route takes them near their hometowns. By the time you reach Bavaria, only a handful of your original company remains. Heinrich, Schmidt, and a few others who've survived the full 4 years. What will you do now? Heinrich asks as you share a last meal together, scraps of bread and cheese obtained from a sympathetic farmer. His face is still gaunt, his eyes haunted, but there's something else there now, a tentative hope. Find my family, you say. Then, I don't know, find work somehow. You pause, considering. What about you? Heinrich shrugs. My brother has a carpentry shop. If it's still there, maybe he'll take me on. He doesn't mention his wife, who stopped writing months ago. No one knows if she left him or if the letters simply didn't get through. In the morning, your paths diverge. Brief handshakes, mumbled good wishes, no grand farewells. You've seen too much together for empty sentimentality. The bonds forged in the trenches don't need words. And then you're alone, truly alone, for the first time in years. No unit, no comrades, no orders to follow, just you and the road leading to your hometown. It's a strange feeling, this solitude. Part of you welcomes it after years of forced proximity to other men in trenches and dugouts. But part of you feels exposed, vulnerable without the collective security of the unit. The countryside is winter bare but peaceful. No shell craters here, no tangles of barbed wire, no corpses rotting in no man's land. Just fields lying fallow, waiting for spring, and villages where people eye your uniform with a mixture of respect, pity, and sometimes hostility. Germany has lost, and the soldiers who fought are now symbols of that defeat. In some towns you see red flags flying, the emblem of the revolutionaries. In others, the old imperial flags still hang, though the Kaiser himself has fled to exile in Holland. The country seems unsure of what it is now, what it will become. You walk for days, catching occasional rides on farm wagons or trucks. Your feet, which marched across Belgium and France, carry you the last miles home without complaint. And then, one cold December afternoon, you crest a hill and see it, your village nestled in the valley below, the church spire, the clustered houses, the surrounding fields, unchanged, at least from this distance, a sight you've held in your mind through 4 years of hell. Your pace quickens despite your exhaustion. Home, finally. The village is quieter than you remember. Fewer children playing in the streets, fewer men working in the yards. The war has taken its toll here too, not in physical destruction, but in absent sons and husbands and fathers. People stop to stare as you walk down the main street. Some nod in recognition. Others look away. No heroes welcome here. Germany has lost, and right now people are more concerned with survival than celebration. Your family's house looks smaller than you remember. The paint is peeling, the garden overgrown. For a moment you hesitate at the gate, suddenly afraid of what you might find inside. Who might be missing? Then the door opens and your mother is there, older, greyer, thinner, but alive. Her hands fly to her mouth. She says your name, a question and a prayer. "It's me," you say, your voice rough. "I'm home." She embraces you, this woman who sent 4 sons to war and now receives one back. Your father appears behind her, stooped with age and worry. His eyes glisten with unshed tears as he grips your shoulder with a hand that trembles slightly. "Thank God," he says simply. Later, sitting at the kitchen table that featured in so many of your trench dreams, you learn the family's war story. One brother killed at Verdun, another missing on the Eastern Front, presumed dead, the third wounded, now living in Munich with a wife he met while recovering in hospital. Your father's carpentry business barely survived, with materials scarce and few people able to afford new furniture during the war. Your mother took in washing, grew vegetables, raised a few chickens. They managed barely. And your fiancée, Maria, her family moved to Stuttgart 2 years ago, fleeing the worsening food shortages in the countryside for the slightly better conditions in the city. She wrote for a while, then the letters stopped. No one knows if she's waiting or if she found someone else. That night in your childhood bed, a luxury of softness and warmth after years of trenches and dugouts, you try to process it all. The war's end, the family losses, the uncertain future. Sleep comes fitfully, broken by nightmares that jolt you awake, heart pounding, reaching for a weapon that isn't there. The war might be over, but it still lives in your mind, in your reflexes, in the way you assess every room for threats and exits. Days pass, then weeks. You help your father with his carpentry, though your hands, once skilled with wood, now seem better suited to weapons than tools. You relearn civilian rhythms, meals at regular times, sleeping through the night when the nightmares allow, conversations that don't revolve around survival or killing. But something's missing. Some vital part of you seems to have been left behind in the trenches. You find yourself unable to explain the war to those who didn't experience it, unable to connect with people who can't understand what you've seen and done. Other veterans in the village are the same. You recognize it in their eyes, in the way they flinch at sudden noises, in how they gather at the tavern to drink and sometimes talk, but often just sit in silence, sharing an understanding that needs no words. The wider world intrudes eventually. News comes of the peace conference at Versailles, where the victors are dictating harsh terms to the defeated Germany. Reparations, loss of territory, limits on the military, the war guilt clause that places sole blame for the conflict on Germany. "It's too harsh," your father says, reading the newspaper by lamplight. "They're humiliating us. This won't lead to lasting peace." You say nothing, Politics seems distant, unimportant compared to the daily struggle of readjusting to civilian life. Let the diplomats and politicians argue over borders and blame. You've seen enough of war to last several lifetimes. Winter gives way to spring. The fields around the village turn green again. You find work helping to rebuild a neighbouring town's church, damaged not by war but by years of neglect while all resources went to the front. Physical labour helps. It exhausts your body, makes sleep come easier, gives purpose to your days, but the restlessness remains, the sense of being adrift in a world that moved on without you. One sunny afternoon in May, you're walking home from work when you see a girl in the village square. Dark hair, blue dress, carrying a basket of vegetables. Something about her posture, the way she moves, catches your attention. Maria. She turns, sees you. For a long moment you both stand frozen, separated by 20 feet of cobblestones and 4 years of war. Then she smiles tentatively and the distance begins to close. She's changed too. The carefree girl of 1914 is gone, replaced by a woman with serious eyes and capable hands. Her family returned to the village after the armistice, she explains as you walk together. Food is still scarce in the cities, and her father thought they'd have a better chance of feeding themselves in the countryside. I wrote, she says, for years, but the letters came back or didn't go at all. Same, you admit. I thought maybe you'd found someone else. She shakes her head. I waited. Not everyone did, but I did. It's not a fairy tale reunion. Too much has happened to both of you. You're both wary, careful with each other, but it's a beginning, a possibility. That night, you dream of the trenches again, but differently, not the usual nightmare of shells and gas and dying comrades. Instead, you're walking along a quiet section of the line, and ahead of you is a door leading home. You step through, and the war falls away behind you like a discarded coat. You wake feeling rested for the first time in years. Summer brings both challenges and hope. The Treaty of Versailles is signed, making official the harsh terms imposed on Germany. Economic hardship continues, inflation begins to climb as the government prints money to meet its obligations. But there are positive changes too. The Weimar Republic is established, bringing democracy to Germany for the first time. Women get the right to vote. There's a cultural flowering in the cities, a desperate embrace of life after so much death. In your village, life follows older rhythms. The crops grow, people marry, have children, die. The church bells ring on Sundays. Slowly, the empty places left by those who never returned from the war are filled, if not forgotten. You and Maria grow closer, carefully rebuilding what was lost. She doesn't ask about the war, and you don't offer. Some burdens can't be shared, not fully, but she seems to understand the silence, the nightmares, the moments when you're present in body, but your mind is back in the trenches. In late August, you propose, using the same ring you gave her before you marched off to war in 1914. She kept it all this time on a chain around her neck. Yes, she says simply. Now, finally, yes. The wedding is small, constrained by the economic hardship that affects everyone. But there's joy in it, a defiant joy that insists on finding happiness even in difficult times. Your father gives you a portion of his land, and together with some of your army pay that you manage to save, you begin building a small house. Your carpentry skills, rusty at first, return with practice. Maria plants a garden. It's a modest beginning, but it's yours. At night, lying beside her, you sometimes find yourself marveling at the simple miracle of peace, of a roof that won't be shelled, of sleep without the need for sentries, of a future that might contain growing old together. The war recedes day by day, not forgotten, never that, but no longer dominating every thought, every reaction. The nightmares come less frequently. The reflexes that kept you alive at the front slowly give way to civilian habits. In October, news comes that your missing brother has been found alive. A prisoner in Russia, released months after the armistice, he's been making his slow way home across a Europe still recovering from war. The family reunion is tearful, joyous, tinged with grief for those who didn't return. Your brother is rail-thin, his eyes holding the same haunted look you sometimes catch in your own reflection. But he's alive, another survivor. Together you begin to talk about the war in ways you can't with those who weren't there. Not everything. Some experiences are too personal, too painful to share, but enough to ease the isolation. As winter approaches again, you put the finishing touches on your new home. It's simple but solid, built to last. Like you, scarred, changed by what it's endured, but standing. On the first snowy evening of the year, you sit with Maria by the fireplace in your newly completed house. The warmth of the fire, the softness of her hand in yours, the quiet knowledge that you have survived and found your way home. These things fill you with a profound gratitude. "We made it," Maria says softly, as if reading your thoughts. "Yes, you agree, we did." Outside, snow falls silently, covering the world in clean white. Inside, in this small space you've created together, there is warmth and safety. Your body feels pleasantly heavy, muscles relaxing in the firelight. Maria's head rests against your shoulder, her breathing slow and steady. You shift slightly, settling deeper into your chair, feeling the tension of the day melting away as you watch the flames dance and let the worries of the day drift away. You've survived much worse than anything this peaceful life could throw at you. Years pass. The 1920s bring challenges to Germany that no one could have foreseen in the heady days of 1914 when you marched off to war. Hyperinflation wipes out savings. Political instability rocks the fragile Weimar Republic. Extremist parties gain support on both the left and right. But in your village, somewhat isolated from the worst urban problems, life goes on. Your carpentry business grows modestly. You and Maria have 2 children, a boy and a girl. You don't name the boy after either of your fallen brothers. Some ghosts are better left undisturbed. The war remains with you, but differently now. Less immediate, more like an old injury that aches when the weather changes. The nightmares come rarely. You can hear a car backfire without diving for cover. Progress. You rarely talk about your experiences, even with other veterans. What's the point? Those who weren't there couldn't understand, and those who were don't need you to explain. But sometimes on quiet evenings, you find yourself telling your children edited versions of your war stories. Not the horror, the death, the fear, but tales of camaraderie, of small kindnesses amid the chaos, of the strange beauty of a flare illuminating the night sky, of the international Christmas truce of 1914, when enemies briefly became friends. "Were you scared?" your son asks one night, his young face serious in the lamplight. You consider lying, then decide against it. Yes, you admit. Everyone was. Brave men aren't the ones who don't feel fear. They're the ones who do what needs doing despite the fear. He nods, absorbing this. You hope he never has to apply the lesson. The 1930s arrive, bringing economic depression and the rise of a new political movement. The National Socialists, led by an Austrian corporal who fought on the same front you did. Their message resonates with many, restoring German pride, overturning the hated Versailles Treaty, providing jobs and stability. You keep your distance. You've seen enough killing, enough blind nationalism, but many of your fellow veterans are drawn to the Nazi message, seeing in it a validation of their sacrifices, a promise that their suffering wasn't in vain. Your brother joins the party early. Arguments at family gatherings become heated, then stop altogether as you see less and less of each other. It's not worth losing family over politics, you think, until the politics becomes impossible to ignore. In 1939, 25 years after you marched off to the war to end all wars, Germany is at war again. Your son is now the age you were in 1914, history repeating itself in the cruelest way. But he doesn't march off with the same patriotic fervour that carried you into Belgium. He's more clear-eyed, perhaps because he grew up hearing your carefully edited war stories, perhaps because this new war lacks the innocent optimism of 1914. They're saying the same things they said last time, he tells you before he leaves, that we'll be home by Christmas, that one big push will end it. You hug him fiercely, knowing too well the odds against such promises. Keep your head down, you say, the advice of one soldier to another. Do what you need to survive. He nods, understanding. Then he's gone, another generation sent to war. The Second World War is both eerily familiar and completely different from your experience. The same countries fighting, but with new weapons, new tactics, new ideologies. The scale is even larger, the destruction more complete. You follow the news as best you can, tracing the German advances across Europe on a map in your workshop. So much faster than in your war, thanks to tanks and aircraft. France falls in weeks, not the years of stalemate you experienced. But Russia proves as formidable an enemy as ever, and America joins the war again, bringing its vast industrial might to bear. By 1943, you know in your soldier's heart that Germany will lose again, though you keep this assessment to yourself in an increasingly oppressive political climate. Your son is wounded in Russia, losing part of his left leg to frostbite and shrapnel, but he comes home alive, which is more than many parents get. Your daughter's husband isn't as fortunate, killed in the bombing of Hamburg, leaving her a widow with a young child. When the end comes in 1945, it's even more catastrophic than 1918. Germany is not just defeated, but destroyed, occupied, divided. The full horrors of the Nazi regime are revealed to a shocked world. No one talks about the glory of war anymore. How do we rebuild from this? Your son asks, sitting beside you as you both watch American soldiers patrol your village street. His artificial leg is propped beside him, a testament to the war's cost. The same way we did last time, you tell him, one day at a time, but hopefully with more wisdom. The years after the Second World War bring changes you could never have imagined as a young soldier in 1914. Germany divided into East and West. The Cold War, economic recovery in the West that becomes known as the economic miracle, new technology that transforms daily life, television, jet aircraft, computers. You grow old in a world that increasingly bears little resemblance to the one you fought for. The empire you defended is long gone. The Kaiser, once revered almost as a god, is a footnote in history books. Even the nations you fought against have transformed. The British Empire fading, France rebuilding, Russia now the Soviet Union behind an iron curtain. Through it all, You live your quiet life. Carpentry gives way to retirement. Children grow up, have children of their own. Maria's dark hair turns silver, but her smile remains the same. You tend your garden, play with your grandchildren, read books about the war written by historians who weren't born when you huddled in those muddy trenches. Some of these books get it right, many don't. They capture the facts but miss the feeling, the mind-numbing boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror, the bone-deep exhaustion, the way a hot cup of coffee could feel like a miracle after days of cold rations. In the 1960s, 50 years after the war began, a young historian visits your village, interviewing veterans for a book. There aren't many of you left now. What was it really like, he asks, pen poised over notebook, tape recorder whirring. The trenches, I mean. You consider the question, the weight of all those experiences pressing on you. How to explain it to someone who wasn't there? Mud, you say, finally. It was mostly mud. And waiting. And being afraid but pretending you weren't. He nods, writing furiously, but you can tell he doesn't really understand. How could he? In 1964, you and Maria celebrate your golden wedding anniversary. Family gathers, children, grandchildren, even a few great-grandchildren. Your brother comes too, older and perhaps wiser, political differences set aside in your twilight years. Did you ever think we'd make it this far? He asks, as you share a quiet moment away from the celebration. That night in the barn? When we first made it back to Germany? No, you admit. Back then, I couldn't see past the next day. He nods, understanding completely. We were the lucky ones, he says softly. You think of all those who never came home, your brothers, your comrades, millions of others on all sides, the lost generation. Yes, you agree. We were. Maria passes away peacefully in her sleep in 1972. You follow a few years later, having lived to see Germany begin the process of reunification, the Cold War thawing, a Europe moving slowly, imperfectly toward a unity that would have seemed impossible in 1914. Your grandchildren inherit your medals, your carefully preserved Stahlhelm, your few wartime photographs, artifacts of a conflict that shaped the 20th century, that carved its lessons into your life and the lives of millions of others. And the question that began this journey, could you have survived as a German soldier in World War I, finds its answer in the life you built afterward. Not just survived, but eventually thrived, carrying the scars, yes, but not defined by them. Because that, perhaps, is the true test of survival, not just making it through the bombs and bullets, the gas and the mud, but finding a way to live afterward, to build something meaningful from the ruins, to discover joy and purpose despite the weight of memory. It's a lesson that resonates beyond that specific war, that specific role. It speaks to anyone who has faced trauma, loss, seemingly insurmountable challenges, the human capacity for endurance, for rebuilding, for finding light even after the darkest experiences. And now as this story draws to a close, perhaps you're feeling a little of that weight yourself. The heaviness of history, the poignancy of lives shaped by forces larger than themselves. It's a lot to hold. So let it go for now. Let your body sink deeper into your bed. Feel the softness beneath you, the warmth of your covers, so different from that hard ground of no man's land, those damp dugouts where soldiers once huddled. Your breathing is slowing now, becoming deeper, more regular. Each breath carrying you further from the tensions of the day, the busy thoughts of your mind. The weight of your head against the pillow feels good, just right. Your eyelids are growing heavier with each slow blink. That's it. There's no need to fight it. Your muscles are relaxing one by one, starting with your feet, that pleasant heaviness spreading up through your legs. Your hips settling more comfortably into the mattress. Your stomach and chest rising and falling with each breath, a little slower, a little deeper each time. Your shoulders dropping away from your ears, releasing tension you might not even have realized you were holding. Your arms heavy at your sides, fingers uncurling, relaxed, your neck and jaw softening, the tiny muscles around your eyes letting go. That's it. The story of that German soldier from over a century ago fades now, like an old photograph. Interesting to contemplate, but no longer immediate, just drifting thoughts as sleep approaches. You're in that comfortable space now between wakefulness and sleep, thoughts becoming less distinct, more dreamlike, images and sensations blending together, safe and warm in your bed, protected from the elements that those soldiers once faced. No mud, no cold, no danger, just comfort and security as you drift deeper. Your breathing is the rhythm of deep relaxation now. Your body heavy, pleasantly weighted against the mattress, holding you in that perfect stillness that comes just before sleep. The outside world recedes further with each breath, sounds becoming distant, less important. Your focus turning inward to the peaceful quiet of your own mind and body. Any remaining tension melts away like ice in warm sunshine. Nothing to do now but surrender to rest. Nothing to worry about, nothing to plan for. Just this moment of perfect relaxation. Your eyelids are so heavy now, it would take effort to open them, and there's no need. Better to let them stay closed, protecting your eyes as you glide towards sleep. Each breath carries you deeper, the subtle shift as conscious thought gives way to the gentle beginnings of dreams, images forming and dissolving, memories and imagination intertwining. The rhythm of your heart slows to its resting pace, your body temperature dropping slightly as it prepares for deep sleep. All natural processes happening just as they should. And with each passing moment, you're drifting further from wakefulness, thoughts becoming more fragmentary, less connected, the mind beginning its nightly journey through dreams. All the tension, all the worries of the day, they're far away now, impossible to hold on to, even if you wanted to, which you don't. Better to let them go, to sink into this perfect relaxation. Sleep is so close now, just beyond the thinnest of veils, and passing through that veil is as easy as taking your next breath, as natural as the beating of your heart. So surrender to it completely. Let go of any last holdouts of wakefulness. Give yourself permission to fall into that deep, restorative sleep that refreshes body and mind, drifting now, floating, the borders between thoughts blurring, fading, consciousness dissolving into the warm embrace of deep sleep. And as you finally cross that threshold, know that your mind and body are doing exactly what they need to do. Healing, restoring, preparing for another day, but that's for tomorrow. For now, there is only this perfect moment of transition, this gentle slide into dreams. Sleep now, deep and peaceful, until morning light returns to wake you, refreshed and renewed. Sleep, soft and gentle. Sleep.